Hi, Kate.
Hey, Christina, how are you?
I'm
Hey,
good.
everybody.
Thanks for joining. Where are you calling in from?
I am in Tucson, Arizona. I temporarily relocated. This is my hometown. Relocated last year to help my mom out after she lost her husband and then the pandemic and all of that. So, kind of
Wow.
adjusting to no longer being a full-time nomad, which is both good and challenging.
Yeah, I know. So many people have been like that too. I'm a frequent traveler too, so it's been an adjustment.
I miss it so much. It's so
But
hard.
I'm
But
also so grateful to just also learn about my own surroundings and not feel like, wherever you go, there you are. So
yeah.
I've really finally needed to learn that lesson.
Yeah, it is. And it's also been good for me to have just some stability and downtime because when I travel, I'm always out doing something, exploring, taking photos, walking. And I very rarely just like sit and be still and relax. And I'm doing quite a bit more of that in the last 12 months.
That's great. Well, we have 13,000 photographers that submit to Scopio. They live
Awesome.
all over the world, and a lot of them are just starting out. So I like to do this live to give people some ideas and learn about what other people are doing. And I'm curious a little bit about your background, but I'd love to know any advice you have for kind of being more in control of your life, more in control of your business, maybe even some of the boring stuff like what kind of tools do you need,
Sure.
and help people think about okay, I can actually do this too.
Sure. So I'll start with a little bit of background. My background's in design. That's what I studied in undergrad, and then went to work for a major sportswear company up in the Northwest, and burnt out after about 5 years, and quit without a plan to go freelance. And I had no idea what I was doing from a freelance perspective, so I made very little money.
Wait, was that even a term, freelance? Like,
Yeah, sure. For designers, yeah, freelance designer, I kind of sort of made ends meet by doing random projects, website designs, business cards, that sort of thing. But I really had no idea how to market and sell myself. And it wasn't sustainable because I left a very good salary. I ended up going back and earning an MBA because I like to overcorrect, and I really wanted to run a business, and I thought I needed a master's degree to do that. That's just a perfectionistic trait that a lot of people do. We search for credentials and validation in places that it's not really necessary.
in my first entrepreneurship course, my professors looked at all of us and said, you already made your first mistake. You wasted money on this class instead of on your own business.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you don't need a master's degree to run a small business, particularly if your goal is to freelance. But that did land me working in startups. And I spent about a decade working in startups, and I just loved it. I love working with entrepreneurs. I love bringing ideas to life. And it's kind of led me to where I am now. I did eventually start a freelance design business that was quite successful. And that enabled me to leave the country and travel with a remote year and travel nomadically for a few years. And now I teach other people how to do the same thing. So that's kind of the background in a nutshell. I spent 3.5 years ish
Mhm.
traveling full time, living and working in 25 different countries.
Like
Um,
what? Like what countries?
I started out mostly in Asia. So I was traveling with Remote Year at the beginning. I did 4 months with them. We did Malaysia, Vietnam, Cambodia, and Thailand. And then I went down to Australia and spent a little bit of time there, and then popped over to Europe and was in Lisbon for a while, Barcelona, London. Then I went back over into the Asia world and was in Bali for a few months, back to Hong Kong, Singapore, Australia.
So
So I kind
once
of
you're
bounced
in
around.
this freelancing design community, when you go move somewhere else, is there already a community that you can just join in on, like somewhere you know where to work or people or is it starting?
It's hit or miss. It depends on where you are. And so I'm very introverted. So I don't tend to get super involved in those sorts of communities. I liked having the Remote Year community when I was traveling with them for that reason. Is like I had community when I wanted it. But like in Bali, there's a huge digital nomad community there. There's a lot of people that live there. We work remotely, and it's very easy to go out and make friends. And I think as travelers, we're we're better. We're better at just like picking up friendships. We're more like 5-year-olds where it's just like, oh, hey, do you want to hang out? Because you're in a foreign spot and you just get used to like taking the friends where you find them. But yeah, you can absolutely tap into communities wherever you are. I tapped into the startup community when I was in Lisbon and got involved there. I was working, going to a lot of networking events in London when I was there for small business owners and startups. So you just kind of pick your spot.
So what are your first like steps when you're teaching somebody? What do you start with?
So your first and the most important thing is to really get clear around what it is you want and why you want to be in business. I call it kind of your vision is your guiding star for your business. And being able to say, this is why I'm doing this is what I do, and these are my goals, really will guide the decisions that you make. I do a webinar, and one of the examples I use is if you look at Mark Zuckerberg, the founder of Facebook, versus Tom, who founded MySpace. Some people would say, well, Tom is a failure because you don't hear about him anymore. But the reality is Tom built MySpace with the goal of selling it for a boatload of money and retiring to the beach when he was 30. And he did that. He made like $600 billion. And Mark wanted to be the typical Silicon Valley CEO. So they had very different visions for why they were creating this business. And if you don't know why you're creating the business, you're not going to get where you want to go. So get clear on what you want. You know, I want to work from home. I want to work in my pajamas. I want to work with awesome clients and only clients that pay really well. I want to do this until I have enough money to retire, whatever that is. But get hyper clear on what you want and then make a decision to get it. And that's really the point that a lot of people forget. They say, well, someday I'm going to do this. I have a dream that I'm going to go freelance, that I'm going to start a business, and they don't take the action because they never get clear enough to make a decision and say, this is what I want.
Like, is there an exercise we can do?
Yeah, I have some exercises in my book and in my online program for getting clear, but really it's a lot of journaling. It's like taking the time to really sit down and ask yourself, what do I want? What do I want in my life? If I could do one thing over and over again every single day, what would I do for a living? How much money would I make? What if this was easy, right? These are mindset hacks because particularly as creative people, we tend to have issues around money. We grew up hearing money doesn't grow on trees. It's hard to earn a living from your creative gifts. But creativity is one of the most valuable tools that we have in our arsenal if you can learn how to market and sell it in a manner that is effective for you.
So say you're like in India and you have like you're a great photographer. How do you start to, and maybe not just photography, maybe you're good at illustrations or you have an eye for different things. Like how do you do that? I mean, it's one thing obviously to be in New York City or LA, but what about for these people that are wherever they are?
I have a lot of clients actually that are from India and Vietnam and the other places where you might not think of six-figure freelancers. Your location isn't the factor of your success. It's your ability to build your brand, communicate your value, and market yourself, which means connecting with potential clients or people that will pay you. So it's a little bit different if you're a fine artist per se. It's a different way of marketing yourself, but you still got to build a brand, right? People buy from artists that they really value, that they love to watch. And so building a personal brand is important for artists. If you're an illustrator, a photographer that does commercial photography, that sort of thing, or portrait photography, then you need to understand who is the client that wants to buy from you, who values your skills.
How can they figure that out?
Well, you can grab my ebook. You can go to ebook.katebagoy.com and I will give you the whole guide on kind of getting clear on your target market. But again, it starts from that vision. It's like, okay, these are the type of clients I want to work with. Now I'm going to go talk to a few of them and find out why they would invest in this. What are the pain points that I'm solving for them, right? People don't buy photography. They buy how that photograph makes them feel. They buy how it looks on their wall. Like, get into their head and think about why they actually buy from you. And businesses typically buy freelance services because they need an expert in a very specific area. So if you can become known for a very specific part of your craft and you can communicate the value of that well, you can rise above the crowd.
And how can you like optimize how much they're paying you? Do you really just have to wait until you become like excellent, or can you be?
Well, you need to be good at your craft, right?
That takes
But
a long time though for people. Like you're gonna have to struggle for 3 years before people are paying you what you think is worth it or whatever. That's like,
not
is there a
necessarily.
shortcut?
Not necessarily. I mean, I know freelancers that come straight out of college that are very good at a very specific part of design, and they can make very good money. You don't have to be the best at what you do, but you do need to be able to deliver the results that you promise. And more importantly, you need to be able to understand what the results that that client want from you in order to sell it at high value prices. So for me, I talked a little bit earlier, like the first time I went freelancing, I didn't know what I was doing. And so what I would do was like go on, well, Craigslist at the time, looking for, freelance jobs. And I was just job searching over and over again. I never took the time to think about the type of projects that I wanted to work on. I never got honed in on a market that I wanted to serve or a very specific offering that I wanted to serve. I never marketed myself as a business. I just searched for jobs over and over again. And when you do that, like on Upwork, on Fiverr, you will pick up some projects, but you're competing on price because you're competing against millions of other people who are offering the same thing. So you have to find your little niche and way to stand out if you want to charge higher value prices.
Do you suggest for people to go on those freelancing sites?
If you're just looking to pick up some experience, absolutely. They're a great place to get started. I don't recommend that you plan your business to be exclusively on Upwork and Fiverr. There are some people out there that do that. I know one gal, she's on TikTok, and she claims that she made $300,000 last year just on Fiverr. And it's totally possible, but I think she works like 60 hours a week. And so when you sit down to think about what do you really want in your life, is that what you want? And if not, spend the time to build your own brand and use those services to get some experience, to get some testimonials, that sort of thing, if you don't have that already.
Do you have like an email list
I
or
do.
like how should people update their progress and use the email to help them?
Use my email list?
No, like everyone has obviously customers they work with or friends
Oh,
or whatever. They have these emails, but they never like really use them until they need to. Is there something that people should be doing?
yeah, that's a really great question. And full disclosure, I'm terrible at following up as well. I do have an automated email list right now, so people get some sort of nurturing from me on the regular basis. But what I recommend doing is keep yourself a very,
What's a regular basis?
usually they get a minimum of one email a week. So I have about a year's worth of content in my email marketing system that comes out. Um, but you don't necessarily need that as a freelancer. You don't need a big automated system or all of that. Here's the simplest way to do this, right? Put yourself together a very simple spreadsheet CRM, which is the client name, the type of work that you've done for them, the last time you contacted them, and sort that by date. And every 30, 60, or 90 days, go back in and see who it's been the longest you talked to and send them an email or
What
a
about
message.
people that are like, no, I don't want to work with you? What do you do?
Take them off your list and let it go. It's not personal. Like particularly, I'm referring to when you're selling to a business. Business decisions are not personal. It's not that they don't like you, they don't think you're amazing, they don't need you right now. Or maybe you missed the mark and didn't do a very good job on the last project. Let it go. Bless and release, right? If you want to grow a business, you have to get a little bit uncomfortable and become more comfortable with rejection. Sometimes you're just not the right person. It doesn't mean that you are a failure, and there's no shame in that. It just means that's not the client for you. And that's the importance of that vision, again, of getting really focused on who are the clients that you do want to serve. Who are those clients that are going to become your raving fans and tell everybody they know about what you do and refer more business your way and keep hiring you. Those are the type of clients you want to focus your efforts on and let go of all of the rest.
Federico, Kate loves you too, in case
Hi, Federico.
Admirer.
Thanks, Federico.
What about if like a business wants to buy something, but they don't want to buy what you pitch them? like say you like are a photographer but also you know an illustrator, or like I'm sure there's ways to like kind of work your way through. How do they do that?
I mean, it's different for everyone. Like I said, so this is a good conversation I have all the time with clients, and every time I do a video, people talk about niching. As creative people, we hate the idea of niching down and saying, I do X service for X
Yeah,
client. We
I'm
want to
such a generalist.
offer,
I'm
yeah,
such
right?
I like talk about everything and do everything.
Yeah, and I'm a generalist too in a lot of ways, but from a marketing standpoint, if you get hyper clear on those offerings, and that's all you market over and over again is the same thing, you can still do that stuff when people come to you if you want to do that stuff. So I'm always like, sell your one thing, the one thing that you're
Like I
absolutely
do
best
logo
at.
design, like for
Yeah,
example. Okay.
exactly. So
But they're
you
like,
want to
oh, we
market
don't really
yourself.
care about our logo, but our Instagram sucks.
Yeah. And so in that case, if you wanted to rehaul their Instagram and take on that work, give them a custom bid. By all means, do the work if you want to, but don't change your brand and start selling Instagram services on top of logo design just because one person asked you for it.
Yeah.
That's where we get really confused messaging, because people, when you're not niche down and you try to speak to everyone, you end up speaking to no one. Nobody understands what you do. Nobody understands your expertise. Nobody sees the value immediately. They have to really dig around and be like, oh, well, she's like all over the map. She's doing logo design and web design and brand design and marketing and social media management. And how
Mm,
is she going to focus on the one thing I really need her to do? So
yeah.
become an expert from a brand standpoint. Be known for something. Be known for what you're best at and what you enjoy.
But what about for young people where they feel like that's limiting to them? Like if
When
you're like
you're
22, 21,
yeah.
you're like, I want to try a bunch of stuff.
Well, you should try it. But if you're going to try and build a business, build
But
the
just
business
brand,
around
like
one thing.
make your, for example, your Instagram page will be like all about logo design. Then you're like your website as well. And then you're like pitching the clients. But then if you feel like, oh, I like this business and I want to do this on the side, you're just not putting it as a testimonial on your website. You're not like mentioning it. You use that money to then keep trying to do that
Yeah.
initial idea or whatever.
Yeah, and if you change your mind, you build a business around logo design, and then you randomly take a project in something entirely different and realize this is your passion and your reason for living,
Yeah.
update your brand, right? Like you're not
Right.
married to the one thing. Like my business has evolved so much since the beginning. Like
Yeah.
and ironically enough, because we're talking on a photography site, I am a coach now because I had intended to build a business around my photography, and I signed up for a course on building a heart-based business, and it turned out this course was all about coaching, and I stumbled on my purpose. I literally had never thought of coaching as career.
I have a coach.
Do good coaching is awesome.
Love
But
it.
that was not my intention. I wanted to become a photographer. And then I kind of realized when I started marketing and selling my photography that it took the joy out of it for me. I love taking photos and I love being creative and documenting my travel. But when I try to make it a business, I hate it. When I have to sit down at Lightroom and edit 1,000 images, it takes away all the fun. But I stumbled on my purpose and realized, like, oh my God, I'm a natural teacher. I have all this weird business experience and creative experience, and I'm in a very unique position to teach this stuff to people, and I'm really excellent at it. I went all in, but I never intended to start a coaching business, right?
Yeah.
So you're not locked into where you start. You can change that. Yes, it might mean redoing some work. If you build an audience who knows you as logo design and then suddenly you switch to social media and that there's no overlap in the audience, you're going to start from scratch a little bit and have to rebuild that audience. But it's not the end of the world. You can adjust and change.
So for people that like say they want to take a jump and like become a freelancer now, or maybe they've been unemployed and like just don't
Mm-hmm.
know what to do, is there like a website that tells you like what insurance to buy or like what you need to get in order to protect yourself and how much
Yeah.
savings you need, like all that stuff?
Yeah, so I'm not an attorney, I'm not a tax advisor, so I tend to shy away from some of that. But at the very basics, like you need a separate business bank account for yourself. If you're just going to take on a couple of projects, you don't necessarily need to get an LLC right away, but it is a good idea to have that if that's your goal is to become a full-time freelancer. In terms of finding insurance and that sort of thing, I know Freelancers Union offers group programs, and there are a few other companies out there that offer that. And you just kind of figure it out as you go. But I think the most important place to start is really to get clear on your vision and build yourself a business plan. It doesn't need to be a big and complicated business plan. I have a template for what I call my 30-minute business plan for freelancers, because freelancing is the simplest business model that you can build. You need a product or a service, you need a client that needs that product or service, and you need a way to connect with them. But you've got to be clear on what those things are that you're offering and have a plan for moving forward and finding leads.
That's great. Well, thank you, Kate. That's a lot of information for people. I'm sure somebody is going to take it and run with it.
I hope so.
And then again, where can they find you?
You can visit me at katebagoy.com. It's just my name, or you can click through to @kbagoy. And I've got a really great article, 8,000 word article on how to start your consulting business that will get you ready. And I have a low cost ebook that will guide you through creating your business plan and your brand.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And stay safe.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.